Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to show you Eucalyptus Coolabah. Again, I'm in southern Arizona, and actually this is just in a hotel parking lot. And you can see there's quite a few of them there, and there. And from what I've seen, Coolabah is actually the most widely planted eucalypt in southern Arizona. And it came from the inland parts of Australia. It inhabits a really wide range geographically. That would also make sense. This probably will be one of the better or the most well-performing eucalyptus in southern Arizona because of the desert, the heat, the unpredictable and variable rain. Coolabah is a species that's native to, well, in its native range, I believe it's in more of the heavy soiled floodplains where the river flows way too intermittently to support other larger river gums like river red gums. And in those places, Coolabah are in their place. And Coolabah is closely related to two other eucalypt species, or maybe three, but mostly two. They have this complex of Eucalyptus coolabah, Eucalyptus victrix, and Eucalyptus microtheca. So Eucalyptus coolabah, and you can see probably these are some pretty good examples that the tree in front of me have some rough bark at the base, but it gets pretty smooth up top. And the ones behind it, you can also see it similarly, that has rough bark at the base and smoother up top. And so this is what, this is a really distinct feature of Coolabah versus Victrix, which is a wholly white trunked tree, which is extremely beautiful, that inhabit a really harsh habitat in, I think, around the Pilbara or the Kimberleys in Western Australia. And also another species, Microtheca, that is from a more northern range than Coolabah, have wholly rough bark extending to the smaller branches. Unlike this one, you see the smaller branches have smooth bark. But all three of them are, the box types and more or less the warmer distributing boxes. And their inflorescence, I don't know if you can see it on this tree. Why don't I talk more about it and walk to another tree that has lower flowers and fruits. But just before I leave, you can see this really cool self-seeded coolabah right beneath this tree. And there's quite a few of them everywhere, just self-seeded in the parking lot. And right now I'm in Tucson. Tucson has a little bit more rain than Phoenix and a little bit cooler, so I assume that's also one of the main reasons they thrive a little bit better here. There's still lots of them in Phoenix, but I don't see them getting as big. But it's pretty comparable. I really like this species just because it's so drought tolerant, and here in southern Arizona there's also pretty high wind, and they're doing fine, and they're not toppling over like every time you see a video about a river windstorm in California. Everyone talks about, hey, this big eucalyptus fell over. I think most of them are fine, but I also of course seen videos of them falling over. But just like old trees, they fall over. Just don't park right underneath them when there's a storm. But in any case, here's this branch that has actually fallen. They have those usually, sorry, here's a good spot, terminal, or sometimes like the compound inflorescence at the leaf axis, but mostly terminal. And when, I believe they're 7-flowered, but these probably have some flower fallen off, but you can pretty much tell from the range that it's about 7-flowered. And these fruits are tiny, and if you see my finger 4 scale, and I believe they also release their seeds pretty early, and when the fruits release, after they release their seeds, they're also pretty fragile and papery. You can crush them with your hands, unlike some of the other gum nuts that are just really tough. And the seeds itself are pretty lustrous, and that just means it's kind of shiny if you look at it under light. Yeah, so let me see if there's anything else I want to mention. I think that's about it. And you know, there's huge variability in from what I've seen. You know, how low the bark persists. For example, this one, the bark is really pretty smooth all over, which is kind of odd. And the newly shed bark, or the upper ones, I think they're more or less powdery. This is not the best example on my finger. And yeah, speaking of them not falling off, I guess this one fell off in the rainstorm. What else? I just want to see if I can find the powdery stuff. Can't find a good example. Anyways, yeah, and oh, one last thing, you know, coming from a wide geographical range, of course, we expect to see some variation, and their leaves are sometimes on the glossier green side. Sorry, not glossy, never glossy. Sometimes on the greener side, and sometimes they're bluish or grayish green. So these are probably, you know, on the grayish green or the bluish green side. And here's some fruits after they shed their seeds. And it just, oh man, this is not a great example, but you might have taken my word for it. They're really fragile, at least comparable compared to other eucalyptus gum nuts. All right, I'll stop rambling, and I hope, yeah, one more eucalyptus species. I'll see you next time. Thanks.